Well, hello. Buenas. Oof, bit hot today out here in southern Spain, I must say. And apologies for, I don't even, I'm going to say 3 weeks, it might be 4 weeks since my last video. Oh, best laid plans of mice and men, my friends. I'm sorry about that. I got really stuck. I think I got stuck with trying to make various arrangements for my summer and all kinds of other things. I got a bit caught up in work. I had a period of not having. I've just found it easier, which I think many of us do, to just kind of my kind of downtime was. It just seemed easier to do to kind of get the TikTok hole or the the awful, the dreadful politics or all the other things that one can lose oneself in these days. Trying another angle here in the garden. Also a different time of day, I think, than I've done before. I don't know if it's going to work out, but I thought it'd be worth a try, right? I don't want to be too long. I don't have. I've only a couple of positive things to say, really. So I was able to finish this afternoon. Louisa M. Alcott's Little Women, which I think is 1868. That sounds right. Yes. Okay. Actually, this edition I think was given to me by my daughter, and it might actually be her mum's. So I think I will save it and give it back, or at least check with that. So from that point of view, this is a keeper and a potential returner. I don't know if I've had a returner so far in the list, have I? Maybe not. Okay. 5-star review, 5 out of 5. I mean, how could it not be? Just wonderful. I cannot remember if I've ever watched all the way through the pre Florence Pugh, Timothy Chalamet movie of, was it maybe sort of 5 years back, which leaves a strong impression in the mind, especially about how one conceives of Laurie and I think Joe as well. I cannot particularly recall the other sisters being that distinctive, but I believe that I think a lot of people, got an awful lot of fondness for the 1980s version, which I'd be very open to see. And I'm pretty sure I must have watched I'm going to say the 40s version, which I think has June Allison in. I might be wrong. So I've only known, this version of the story from those films, or parts of films, or bits of films that I remember. And it's quite interesting how the choice is made about the 21st century version, what was kept in and what was left out, and very interesting. I mean, I think useful, interesting, creative choices. But this version, things that struck me going in pretty cold, really, apart from a basic understanding of the story, I suppose. Very consciously tied to the Pilgrim's Progress, which I, being a Catholic, it was not a core text in my household growing up, and it's not something I've ever read. But I know of other people who have been a big influence on their lives, and the Pilgrim's Progress and all the rest of it, kind of things, Slough of Despond, and all these things which are very much in English culture, I think. So that was really, really interesting. I was really also struck by how Anglophile this culture, milieu, family situation was. There's quite a lot of callbacks to classic English literature, and if the story's set in 1861, I think it must very much still have been for, I guess, a certain kind of WASP level of society, still maybe the kind of template, perhaps. I thought that was interesting. I also like the way that the war is done, the Civil War. You have the whole issue with the father and the being away, and I think if I got understand the date right, it's still only the first year of the war. So it'd be interesting to see how the girls and the family and the father do after 4 years of that, really. Interesting, interesting. I think the rebels are not really talked about at all. I think there's maybe one or two sort of jokes about. I think it's a rebel barrage. Right, there's nothing else mentioned about it at all. That was interesting. So I thought the language was great. I think I'm always a little bit ambiguous about stories. Stories have little songs or poems in them, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. I was quite impressed by the little poems in this, and I think Louisa must have had a bit of a gift for that, or maybe it was standard equipment for literary persons of that time and class. And I thought that was interesting. Uh, yes, it is a story about class and society and all those kind of things, sure. But it's also, it really is interesting, and it's kind of like seems like a very different world, doesn't it? Looking at how there's a constant kind of beat, isn't there, of what proper life is and how hard life is and how work is a very important part of life, and relative poverty, and the fact that you probably won't have a lot of money, and all these kind of things. It's interesting. The, uh, the, the 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 intervention of the aunt at the end is a not. I mean, I'm not going to give a spoiler away, but I mean that strikes one. So that was interesting, and also the deep Christianity of it. Not too surprising if you've got Pilgrim's Progress as a kind of shadow text, right? But very much about I think a sincerely held belief and faith, and how that is meant to be a living thing that kind of influences the girls. I think the personalities are very different. Personalities are very different. Characters of the sisters is done very well. I mean, Jo is just as she's such a well drawn character, and I believe that's what Louisa saw herself in, kind of thing. But the other sisters, I mean, maybe the younger ones, there isn't so much differentiation, but you get a definite sense of what Meg is like, what Jo is like, what the mum is like, how Laurie is, and his dad or his granddad. Sorry. I thought, well, that was done really, really well. But I mean, just overall, I think it was. Yes, the language could be a tiny bit not stiff. It can be a tiny bit treacly, and there are lots of kind of the sides that feel like jokes that maybe for a modern audience don't particularly land very well. But and there's very much a sense of the narrator's voice, and sometimes she's got a tiny bit of ironic distance, hasn't she, with her characters, and I think that's quite nice. But I was enchanted, really. I liked the mood, I liked the story, I liked the sense of these girls and their lives, and sometimes the kind of preaching has got me a little bit, that idleness is always always turns out to have a bad end, and kind of little things like that. But I mean, I accepted that, really. I thought it was delightful. I was very happy to read it, very happy to finish it. I'm really intrigued by going back and looking at the movies again. I think that'd be worth doing. I think, like I said, the changes I think are interesting, instructive. I'm not sure I'd read a sequel. Do I want to know what happens next to the women? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think any other of the books has kind of as the cachet of this, has it really? I don't know what that says, but delightful, interesting sense of Americana in that part of the century, of that culture, that language, that connection to England, but obviously still different, and going its own way. I mean, maybe that war changed America in that way too, right? So good book, very happy to read it. I'm just going to go straight into the other book I started, which is this terrific book, Milkman. Loving the language, loving the kind of the sensibility of it. So very happy with that. I've got quite a lot to get through, but I shall do it, and I'm going to try and do one of my famous commitments and get something to you by the end of the week. Okay, my friends, thank you very much. I really just wanted to kind of get this out back on the train. back into doing videos. And thank you very much for your time. See you later. Bye. Bye.